Okay. Good evening. Welcome, Yaya. Good to have you back again. Just want to double check that my audio and video is coming out clearly. If you can let me know, I would appreciate it. Great. Baruch Hashem. I want to thank Hashem for giving me an opportunity to learn this evening. And it's a tremendous zechus, and it's been a wonderful experience for me this past semester to do this online shiur. And I hope that everyone who has attended live or who has listened to it in recorded fashion has benefited and grown from the learning that we did. I know that I certainly have. We're going to be continuing tonight with Hilchos Shutafim B'Karka, Halacha Beis, Siman Daled. So, the lesson says, V'zeh bechinas eruve chatzeros b'shitufei mevoros, she'asru chachamim ma'afilu b'chatzer omavai asmo l'taltal ki im al yedei eruv v'shituf. So there's a couple of halachic concepts here that I want to clarify in case anybody's not familiar. The first is the concept of an eruv chatzeros and a shituf mavai. These are areas that are essentially private domains that one is midaraisa, perhaps permitted to carry within on Shabbos, as long as they're closed. However, the Chachamim determined that since they're large areas, and they're areas with many participants dwelling in the same area, that there needs to be some demonstrative indication that this is indeed a private domain and not a public domain, to avoid the confusion that people will think, well, if I could carry in my chutzner, in my courtyard, or in my mavai, which I'll explain what that is in a moment, if I can carry in those areas, then I must be allowed to carry also in the public domain because they look very similar. Because these places have many dwellers in them, and so does the public domain. So what's the difference? So to avoid that confusion, the Chachamim required certain tikkunim, certain measures, to establish and to remind people that no, these areas are private domains and not to confuse them with public domains. So the first is a chatzir, a courtyard. Excuse me. And the chatzir we're talking about here is a chatzir, a courtyard which is shared by many houses, all opening into the chatzir, but forming a square around them or some other enclosure. So there's no issue with it being open. The only issue is that there's multiple participants sharing in the usage of the courtyard. And the same thing with a mavai. A mavai is a structure, if one could imagine, like a main road, and then offshoots off of that main road on all sides are individual chatzeros, or individual courtyards. So while, and the mavai is the main thoroughfare that connects all these different courtyards. So while the mavai is not the Rishus Harabim, because after all, it only connects all the different courtyards, so it's not a true public domain, because the only people who would be going down that mavai, who would be entering that mavai area, would be the residents of that area. So while it is a private domain to a large extent, it has the appearance of being a public domain due to the amount of people that traverse it, etc. And as a result of that, the Chachamim were concerned that people may confuse it with a public domain and think that, and mistakenly think that they can carry in the public domain as well. So the first thing that we're talking about is the Eruv. An Eruv is something which unites all of the dwellers, all of the homes of the courtyard. So let's say, for example, a courtyard has 12 homes that open into it. And in order to carry in that courtyard, even if it's a private domain for all intents and purposes, meaning it's not open to the public, but to carry within that courtyard, in and out of one's home into the courtyard, it requires that all of the dwellers and participants in the courtyard participate in a communal Eruv. Eruv means to combine, to unite, and there's two parts to, let's say, for example, the colloquial form of the word Eruv that we use in when we talk about a community. One component is the string that goes around the community. Everybody thinks, or colloquially refers to that as the Eruv. But really, that's not the case. That's a Tzuras HaPesach. That's the form of an opening. So the two vertical poles and the horizontal string create a doorway. And so what's really surrounding the community is a bunch of open doorways, door frames, essentially. But the thing that's really technically, halachically called the Eruv is the bread that is set aside on behalf of the dwellers of the courtyard or the community. And that's the thing that really unites everybody and actually permits, once we have an enclosed area, that actually permits carrying in and out of that courtyard. So just to put a seal on it in a sense, let's say you and three other neighbors all share an enclosed backyard. It would be prohibited for any one of you to take something from inside your homes and bring it into the courtyard or vice versa, even though it's surrounded on all sides, without first making an Eruv, without first taking some bread, traditionally is used, and creating this entity, this halachic entity that unites all of the dwellers of the courtyard. Similarly, if someone has a mavai, this thoroughfare, then it would be prohibited to carry from any one of the courtyards entering into this thoroughfare called the mavai, without first making a similar structure as the Eruv was for the courtyard, without first making a similar structure for the mavai. And the mavai structure, rather than being called an Eruv, is called a shituf, which means to partner, to combine. It means it's the same concept, conceptually the same thing, but it's just a way of referencing that same process, but for a different entity, in this case, the mavai. So that's a little bit of background on the difference between a chatzer and a mavai, and an Eruv and a shituf. And it'll give us a framework to understand what Reb Nosson is going to tell us and teach us, and we'll be able to use the background that we have from all of our learning so far to really connect to this halacha. So let's go. Ki b'Shabbos, because on Shabbos, asur la'orer shum pu'ula meshuneh, it's prohibited to effectuate any different type of action, any different type of work, of activity. The canal, like we said above, and if you're unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, it would be a good idea to listen or to learn the material from previous shiurim, because I don't want to take the time now to give an exhaustive review, but we're going to be building now on what we learned before. If you haven't learned previously, you can still benefit from it. I'm just not going to go through the exhaustive review beforehand in reference. But we said that Shabbos is the weekday is a concept of many different activities, specifically the 39 prohibited malachos that we do during the week. And Shabbos is a concept of unity, of one, meaning we don't do different activities. We refrain from those different activities. And we even said that by refraining on Shabbos from those different activities, we give meaning to those activities that we do during the week by demonstrating that there's a difference between the two, and we were commanded not to do them on Shabbos, and therefore when we do them during the week, our goal is to infuse those activities during the week with the holiness of Shabbos. That was a key point that we focused on several times before. Bringing Shabbos into the weekday. And therefore, even the people, the dwellers of the chatzir, the courtyard, and the mavai, the area which is that's like a thoroughfare between many adjoining chatziros, courtyards. Since in these kinds of kind of like geographic structures, whether it's a chatzir, whether it's a mavai, we have lots of things going on. We have lots of people, lots of different people doing different things, living in different areas, but nonetheless being combined and united in the chatzir, in the courtyard, or in the mavai. Al Kain, therefore, Asra Alehem Metaltel, says Rav Nosson, therefore the Chachamim, the rabbis, prohibited moving things in and out of the chatzir or the mavai, except only through the mechanism that somebody makes an erev or a shituf with bread. Because the main erev, the main uniting through the halakhic concept of the erev or the shituf. Again, the erev would be for a chatzir, for a chatzir with multiple dwellers, and a shituf would be for a mavai with multiple chatziros as the sub-dwellers. So the main thing is to do it with pas, because the main erev or shituf. So I'm not going to keep translating the erev or shituf at this point. I think we've explained those concepts well enough for now. But the main erev and shituf is through bread. Because it's through this, through the unifying of the people in the chatzir or the mavai through bread, that unites all the different components into the echad hapashut, into the simple unity, which again is something we said during the weekday. We fall, in a sense, victim to the idea that we have a lot of things going on. We're affected by a lot of extraneous external factors. We're distant from Hashem more so than we are on Shabbos. But when we have Shabbos, then we have a relationship with Hashem as a son, as a child, a ben, and the relationship with Hashem is recognizing Hashem's simple unity, and not being subject to pu'ulos mishtanos, to all these different types of actions and influences. So we unite under the oneness of Hashem. So now we're taking these two concepts, the concept of Shabbos and uniting on Shabbos with the oneness of Hashem, and the bread that one gives and participates in to unite the region that they're in, the erev or the shituf. But why bread? So Rav Nosson is going to explain. So beautiful. Because it's with bread that a person lives. And the life, the existence of life, the life power within a person is the unity of the body and the soul. The chibur, the binding and the connecting of the guf and the nefesh, of the body and the soul. Ki ha-nefesh mechayeh haguf, because the soul brings life into the body. V'ha-nefesh hi bechinas chelek elokam mimal, and the soul is a concept of a portion of godliness from above. Bechinas achdus ha-pashut yisbarach, which, as we said, is the simple unity of Hashem. V'haguf hu bechinas pu'ulas mishtanos, but the body is comprised of a multiplicity of actions that are constantly going on. When you think about the body, you have a heart beating, the blood flowing, the organs functioning, the exchange of oxygen on the cellular level. Then on the more macro level, you have the muscles working, the brain working, all of the organs performing a myriad of different actions. So the body, I hope everybody can understand what Nassim is beautifully telling us here. The body is comprised of pu'ulos mishtanos, many different kinds of activities. Now contrast this to the soul. The soul is connected to Hashem, right? As a result of that, Hashem is one. Hashem is not a multiplicity of activities. There's only one Hashem, and He is a constant, immutable source. The soul comes from that. So our souls are a manifestation of Hashem's oneness. And now what happens is, to a human being, is you have a collision almost between the oneness of our souls and the multiplicity of our bodies. Much in the same way that we have, two aspects of the week. We have the multiplicity of the weekday, and we have the oneness of Shabbos. But through food, miskashrim yachad haguf hanefesh bechinas pu'ulos mishtanos she'echlon be'echad hapashut. Through food, we have the capacity to unite the different and distinct actions that the body is performing, and bringing all of that under the canopy, in a sense, of the achdus hapashut, the oneness of Hashem. So that despite the fact that the body has a lot of things going on with it, but despite that, it doesn't mean that the body always remain at the furthest distance from its spiritual counterpart, meaning the soul. So on one hand, you have the soul over here, on the other hand, you have the body over here, and the soul is all ruchnius, all spiritual, the body is all physical. So you would think, and it's true to a large extent, that they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, and that they can't be near each other. In fact, the soul probably does not like being in the body. It's very constraining to the soul. But be that as it may, it's here. So what Nassim is saying is that through the modality of food, we have the ability to unite the differences that exist within the body and bring it under the dominion or control or influence, however you want to say it, of the Shema, of the soul. So now, previously when we talked about the week and Shabbos, we were elevating the week by taking the Shabbos into the weekday, right? We were taking the Echad HaPashut and bringing it with us into the weekday. And now what we're saying is we're taking the very disparate and distinct functions of the body and components of the body and bringing that also into the Echad HaPashat of our neshama, of our soul. Therefore, a person needs to eat with this kavana, with this intention, that is the concept that a righteous person eats to satisfy his soul. So what does this mean? It means that there's two ways that a person can eat. A person can eat because they're hungry and because they are enjoying their food, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But a person could also eat on a higher level, where their eating is a manifestation of their quest and of the spiritual. So they're eating to sustain their bodies so that their neshama, their soul, can function and grow. And that's their intention. So certainly somebody who's eating that way is not going to overeat. That's number one. Number two, they're not going to eat the wrong kinds of food. A Torah-observant person is obligated not to eat anything that's not kosher. He's not going to be eating something that's prohibited. And we're going to see a little bit more about what Reb Nosson says about eating. And it really, really has the ability, if you think about it and allow it to kind of like percolate in your mind a little bit and find its way into your daily life, really has the ability to change and influence positively your focus about perhaps one of the most common activities, which is eating. All right. Because, says Reb Nosson, eating, the main concept of eating really needs to be, even though it's a physical activity, even though you're doing it with your body, but your intention should be, or in the best case scenario, could be that you're eating in order to give you the strength that you need to enhance your spiritual existence, your neshama. Which is to uncover, to reveal the single unity, the simple unity of Hashem amongst the various subcomponents, through the life of a person. Again, comparing the concept of we live in a world of multiple things going on. But by Hashem, there's only Hashem. There's no multiple things going on. We live in a very confusing realm. We live in a dimension, in an environment, let me say, that is constrained by multiple dimensions, whether they be of the physical kind, length, width, height, depth, etc., or any characteristic that comes along with that, cold, hot, soft, hard, any type of description. We also live in an environment that's controlled by time. So all of these different things create an environment that seems very, very much ununified. Our mission in this world is to understand and to discover, to the very best of our ability, Hashem. Because the reality is that He is here and He is obviously with us. And by elevating ourselves spiritually and being aware of these principles and being on the lookout for them and doing the various things that we do through our mitzvos, we gain a heightened awareness of Hashem in this world. And what that does for us is it enhances our life in this world. Because in truth, the life of a person the fact that a person is alive, davar nifla is an amazing, amazing thing. Shemekashu ruchani begashmi. That where do you ever have this idea that two disparate components, spiritual and physical, can come together in the same being? Kamosha perish chachamenu zal, as our chachamim explain, al omaflila asos, and he does wondrous things. Hashem. When we go to the bathroom, we say a bracha asher yatzar, who created and who formed, and we say umafli la'asos, and he does wonders. Shekosher davar ruchani begashmi, and Reb Nosson is saying that at the end of that bracha, rofecho basar umafli la'asos, who heals all flesh, who heals all people, or all beings, umafli la'asos, and who does wonders. Reb Nosson is explaining shekosher davar ruchani begashmi. What that's referring to is the idea that Hashem has joined two very distinct things into one being, and that one being is us. And the two components are our spiritual side and our physical side. And by realizing this, especially when we're making a bracha, and who does wondrous things, what we're doing is we're uniting all of the different parts under the umbrella of the Achdus HaPashut of Hashem, the simple oneness of Hashem. And under the main thing of life, which is the nefesh of the person, the soul. And we kind of like extract this understanding from the multiple different activities. That the guf is comprised of many different distinct activities, as we mentioned. From the four foundations or fundamentals. In medieval time, it was thought to be believed, and probably on some level it still holds true, that life is comprised of four elements: earth, wind, water, and fire. So we see that reality is comprised of, and we don't need just that example. We're just looking at our body. We see we have different things going on at all times within our bodies. We see that we're comprised of subcomponents. And because of this, because we ourselves embody the idea of many multiple things coming together, but being separate and distinct things nonetheless. Because of this, therefore the eating of a person, when a person eats, it has to be in a certain way, or in the way that can help reveal this Achdus HaPashut. Wouldn't it be wonderful to understand that your ability to perceive God is dependent on how you eat? And that's exactly what Reb Nosson is saying. Reb Nosson is saying, you want to feel closer to God? Be mindful of how you're eating. Because eating, he says, he's explaining, and I'm doing my best to try to translate and explain it, eating is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Because when someone eats with the intention that their goal is to be healthy and strong so they can pursue spiritual goals, not just physical goals, then what they're doing is their eating plays a dual role of not only caring for the body, but also caring for the soul and uniting the two. That process accentuates the soul. Accentuates the soul. Since the soul is axiomatically coming from Hashem, it's a chelek elokah mimal, it's a portion of Hashem from above. Since that's the case, then when we do something like eating carefully and mindfully, and we have intent to benefit the soul, we accentuate the soul and highlight Hashem in this world, because our souls are part and parcel of Hashem in this world. We talk Pulas Mashanas and we do this by focusing on the Achdus HaParsha, the simple unity of Hashem, amongst all the different types of activities. Okay. Because God forbid, when somebody eats only for their physical pleasure, like live to eat, not eat to live, but live to eat. My goal, not mine, but someone says that their goal is to be able to live in order to eat. When that's the attitude, as chas v'shalom misgaber haguf al hanefesh, that's when the body takes charge over the soul. And that's when all the various different components, right, that are on the opposite side of holiness, that's when all of those components start taking control of a person's soul. And all of these components are getting their nourishment, they're getting their marching orders from the Sitra Achra, from the other side, from dark spiritual forces. So it's almost like, to use the analogy, the inmates are running the prison. Rather than having the situation under control and everything running properly, here we have a situation where a person is living to eat. His eating is only to pleasure himself, and as a result of that, the soul is second and has taken a back seat to the body. And now that person is going to be exposed or exposing himself to all of the seductions and negativity of the Sitra Achra. And if you look around today and you understand that when we're talking about eating, we're talking about eating with Kedusha, with holiness, and you look around and you understand that obesity and complications from obesity is rampant and so prevalent and so damaging and harmful to so many people, it's not surprising that Rav Nosson says this is coming from the Sitra Achra. The Sitra Achra wishes, these dark spiritual forces wish to undo humanity. But we can't allow that to happen. So he continues and he says, and it conceals, God forbid, the existence of Hashem's oneness. As the pasuk says, lest you will eat and be satisfied, as Hashem, and you'll forget Hashem, you'll forget God. Because when a person's eating is only for the fulfillment of his own pleasure, then he's not eating with an intent to pursue spiritual goals, and he will eventually wind up forgetting Hashem. And eating like this, he bechinas achilas eitz hadas tov v'ra. This is the idea of eating from the eitz hadas, the tree of knowledge of good and bad. So this is the tree that Adam and Chava were commanded to refrain from eating. Ki biyom achalcha mimenu, because on the day that you will eat from it, most tamus, you will surely die. That was what Hashem commanded Adam and Chava. Don't eat from the eitz hadas, tov v'ra, of good and bad, the tree of knowledge of good and bad, because on the day that you'll eat from it, you will surely die. Ki ikar achizas tov v'ra, because the main grasp of the concept of good and bad is a concept of pu'ulos mishtanos, of various other things. In other words, when do you have good and bad? When you have lots of things going on, when you have some people doing some things and other people doing other things, or you have a choice between A and B. One of them is good, one of them is bad, for an example. I know some people may be thinking, well, what if they're both good? Okay, but in our example, we're saying in a more binary sense, let's say somebody has a choice to go left, he can't go right. If he goes right, he can't go left. So the idea is he can choose good or he can choose bad, but you can't choose both. And this is a concept of death. Because life is a revelation and understanding of Hashem's oneness. So you hear what he's saying? What he's saying is, if life itself, if life is an understanding, a revelation, a connection to the oneness of Hashem, then the flip side of that coin is comparable to death, because it means that you don't have the person doesn't have oneness. What they have is lots of disparate components. But when a person focuses on and reveals the oneness of Hashem, Shu Chai HaChayim, that's the life of all life. Life comes from Hashem. But when the various different actions, activities, components, etc., start to exert their authority, their influence, they get strong. During that time, there's no revelation of Hashem's oneness is going on, God forbid. Then this is a concept of Misa, God forbid. Because it's the exact opposite of being connected to Hashem, which is a concept of life. I know this sounds very abstract, but as I've done so far tonight, and I hope to continue, God willing, we'll show how it's very, very practical. Okay, and he's about to go into some other point. So just to wrap up what I've said so far, we live in an environment of multiple factors. Our goal, our job, our spiritual growth comes from identifying Hashem's oneness, even in this environment. We have it during the week where we have multiple things, whereas on Shabbos we only have one. We're one with Hashem, and we don't do those other activities. We also have it within our bodies. Our bodies are comprised of multiple things, but our souls are only one, yet they're connected. But a person is charged with the responsibility or the opportunity to eat with the goal of being able to supply the necessary nourishment to their bodies so they can pursue spiritual goals as well. And when they do that, a person reveals Hashem's achdus. When a person does and gains life. When a person does not do that, however, a person connects themselves to negative spiritual forces, and they fall victim to multiple other forces. The lesson continues. And therefore, a person needs to make a bracha, a blessing, on each thing, in order that the food should be incorporated in this concept of Hashem's oneness through the bracha. So the Gemara says we make a bracha on food when we eat it, before we eat it, because it really doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Hashem. And a person wouldn't use something that belongs to someone else without first asking and thanking. And that's why we make a bracha before we eat and after we eat. That's one answer. What Rav Nosson is giving us here is a separate answer. And what he's saying is, by making a bracha, we bring Hashem into our eating. And by bringing Hashem into our eating, we take the food that we eat and incorporate it into this concept of Achdus HaPashut, the simple unity of Hashem. In order to reveal through the eating of this food, through this food, Shulchias Ha'adam, which is the life of a person. A person can't live without food, obviously. Bechinas Achdus HaPashut mitoch be'ulas mishtanos, into the Achdus HaPashut from the Pe'ulos Mishtanos. So what we're doing is we're saying, when we make a bracha, that our desire is to incorporate our eating into the mission, into the goal, the objective of finding and identifying the Achdus HaPashut of Hashem. And this is the idea of eating on Shabbos. So far, what Nassim has discussed is eating in general, vis-a-vis the body. Then he discussed, just now, eating with a bracha, a blessing. And now we're going to discuss eating on Shabbos. And this is the idea of eating on Shabbos. Because through the holiness of Shabbos, through the holiness of Shabbos, there is revealed automatically the simple unity of Hashem Yisbarach from the multiple types of activities that went on during the week. Therefore, as mitzvah gadola, therefore it's a tremendous mitzvah, lechol, to eat, the ikar kavod haShabbos hu achila, and the main honor of Shabbos comes through eating, which is why we have, number one, we have 3 meals on Shabbos, and we save the best food for Shabbos, right? Ki al yedei achila Shabbos Kodesh, because through eating on Shabbos Kodesh, on the holy Shabbos, shi achila kedusha, which is a holy type of eating, bechinas az tisanag al Hashem, which is the idea of then you will rejoice on Hashem, meaning on Shabbos. That's when you're closest to Hashem, so you rejoice with Hashem. How to rejoice? You go to a wedding. Of course, they're going to have food. And it's through this kind of eating, holy eating, where we're eating special foods, and we're eating with the right intent, and we're eating on Shabbos, and we're eating with a bracha before and after. It's through all of this that we reveal, that we bring to this world the idea of Hashem's oneness. And we also enhance our ability to understand it. And therefore, it's important that a person even need to eat during the weekday, lichvod Shabbos, in honor of Shabbos. As our rabbis have taught in the Gemara, that the benefit of the revelation of Hashem's oneness is not only relegated to Shabbos itself, but when a person brings this into the weekday. And therefore, a person needs to eat even during the weekday in honor of Shabbos. Just like we said before, that it's possible to draw the Shabbos into the weekday, we're saying now one way that a person can do that is by eating during the weekday in honor of Shabbos. Eating on Shabbos is, of course, wonderful, and that's in what Moshe says is the main honor of Shabbos is through our eating in holiness on Shabbos. But now he's adding that we can even draw that into the weekday by eating in honor of Shabbos during the weekday. Because it's through eating specifically that we demonstrate and reveal the idea of Hashem's oneness despite the pu'ulas mishtanos, the different types of activities. Why? Because eating is the life source of a person in the physical sense. Kishur hanefesh v'haguf, which is the tying, the connecting of the soul to the body. So eating in holiness, eating with the right intent, eating properly, not as a glutton, but someone who is looking to nourish their body so that the soul also has what it needs to pursue its spiritual goals. Eating in order to honor the Shabbos. Eating even during the weekday in order that we should be able, for example, to get to the next Shabbos. Eating with the intent that I'm not eating just to fill my stomach, just so I'm not hungry, but I'm eating in order to allow my soul to experience Hashem's oneness. Even despite the fact that I'm doing a very physical activity, I'm doing that physical activity with the goal and the focus of bringing Hashem's oneness into an environment of lots of disparate components. Okay, so we're going to stop there for tonight, and this actually is the last session of this semester. So I want to thank everybody that participated live for joining us, and I hope that anybody that either attended or listened to the broadcast benefited in a practical way from Rabbi Nachman's lesson, as well as Rabbi Nassan's lessons that we spend much time learning as well. And that's it. I look forward to the next time. Thank you. All the best. Teresa, thank you for joining us, and I hope everything is all right with you. Our prayers are with you. Have a good night, Yaya.